Hey guys, it's Rogaway here, and today we are looking at something called signatures and impositions. This is a very important part in planning for printing a project, especially if you're going to go to any sort of commercial printer with your job. It's important to know how the printers are actually going to take your job and print it. And I hope this makes sense to you guys. I'm going to make it as clear as I possibly can. And if it still doesn't make sense, make sure you ask questions or comment or whatever. But when a job goes to be printed, they don't just go and print a single page at a time and, let's say it's a 100-page book. They're not going to just print it a page at a time like you might think. It's not like your home printer where you're going to just send it and get as many copies as you can. What they're going to do is they're going to take a giant sheet of paper. Okay, so just imagine that this is a giant sheet of paper. And what they're going to do is they're going to take that giant sheet of paper and they're going to try to optimize the amount of print that they get on that single sheet. So again, if this was my sheet of paper, and let's say it's a huge sheet, and I have to print a book. I want to waste as little paper as possible to sort of save on paper, but also to save on time when it comes to printing. So what a printer will do is they will set up what's called a signature. And what a signature is basically this paper gets folded. I'd like you guys to maybe follow this as well. Folded in half, and it comes down and it gets folded in half again, and it gets folded in half one more time. So what was that? 3 folds, right? And you end up with this little book, all right? This little rectangle. It could be a square depending on the size of the paper, but generally in this case it's a rectangle. Now the reason this is important is this little rectangle has all the pages we need for this book that we would be creating. So what they would do with something like this little book, is they would go and label it. So the first page, number 1, is going to be this outside page, right? This is going to be the cover. I always do this. I put a 1, but then I put a line underneath it. Okay, I put a line, and I'll show you why that's important after, but I put a line. You'll notice that if you open this book, it doesn't really open right. It kind of just jumps straight to the middle. But inside of here, there are all these pages that are kind of stuck. Because, again, this edge is attached. So what we need to do is we got 1, we open this little gap here. We just kind of crinkle the paper. We put a 2. Doesn't really matter where we put it. We'll just put a 2 in the middle with a line underneath. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, so I opened that little gap. Then this side would be 3. And I put a little line underneath. Then I go to the next opening and I put a 4. This one would be 5. Sorry for the sloppy writing. I open up this little gap here with my thumb. Okay, this would be 6. And then 7. And so on. I'm going to go all the way through here. So 7. The middle, in this case, is 8 and 9. Now I continue on this side. So 10, 11. Go to the next one. 12. 13. 14, 15, and 16. Now this tells us a lot about how books are made, because you'll notice that on a single sheet of paper, it works out at 16 pages. All right, so if I open this up now, if I unfold it, there is the proper order that the pages would need to be set up in your file, whether it's an Illustrator or an InDesign document. This is the way those pages would need to be set up in order for this to print properly on a signature. And the signature, remember, is the name for the giant sheet of paper that is printed. What we're looking at here, where we have all these pages, is called an imposition. And an imposition is how those pages are set up in order to print properly on a signature. And you'll notice the reason I put the little lines under each of the numbers is because when you open this up, you'll notice that this row, all these pages are facing this way, and this row, they're all facing this way. So it was important to see which way the page had to flip in order for this to work as well. Another thing you'll notice is that the pages don't follow any sort of order when it's open like this. So you'll notice that page 16, which is actually the last page, is sitting next to page 1. All right? And this is called a printer's spread. Okay, 2 pages that sit next to each other in this sort of order is called a printer's spread. And again, this is important to know, because if you ever print a book, if you ever go to actually create a book, you're going to need to know a little bit about printer spreads and signatures and imposition also, in order for it to come out proper. Now, you might be asking, well, what's the point of having a book like this if you can't actually open it or use it the way that a book's supposed to be used? Well, what you would do, or what they would do, is they would come in with a commercial cutter, and they would trim along this edge, and there would be bleed on the edges of the sheets to allow for this. And if you remember what bleed is, it's that little bit of extra print area. And they would also trim the top. Okay? And depending on the size of the book, they would probably put staples in here. It's called saddle stitching. Or they would glue it. And now you would see that this would open as a book should. And it would allow you to view this in the proper order. Okay? So now we've got it in the proper sheets and the proper printer spreads, as I mentioned. Very important that you understand that pages don't go together in the order that you might think when it comes to printing. So 16 and 1, 2 and 15. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. That's how books are made. That's also why if you do go to get a big book printed and produced, they're always going to give you quotes in either 16-page amounts or 32-page amounts or whatever. Otherwise, if it doesn't work out in those dividends of 16 or 8 or an even number of some sort, then you're going to get charged extra, because it's more work for them to have to print other sheets that they just insert after. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. I want you guys to all make one of those, and we are going to use that in an upcoming assignment. Till next time, thanks for watching.